the past in years past, but I'm curious what your interactions are like with Bud Black, and how they've changed over the years, and if what are they like nowadays?
Um, yeah. So, I mean, at first there was kind of a feeling each other out period. Like, what is he like? What am I like? And so we were very professional early on, which we still are very professional, but much more loose and relaxed and, trusting of each other now. And usually there's a lot of smiles and laughing when we interact now.
When I've talked to him about how he approached, or how when he was a pitcher, he's talked about how he would think along with a game. Not he had a job to do, obviously, and you have a job to do, but I think you find yourself kind of at times, sort of thinking like a manager. Is that do
All
you?
the time, all the time. uh, yeah, everything that this is what I've learned about responsibility, right? When you like gain more responsibility like a manager does, you have more and more people like me and you and everybody at home who thinks they know what's going on and get to second guess every time something goes wrong. So that's the beauty of responsibility. And when things go right, you just kind of pass it off as, oh yeah, that's what I would have done. But when things go wrong, then it's like, oh, I would have done this differently. But I do, yes. Back to your question, I think along with the game, and try and think about what I would do, what's the best thing to do in this situation. And I would say a lot of times we line up with, at least Buddy lines up with what I think is the best thing to do. And if we differ, it's usually because I'm wrong.
So in those moments when you found yourself to be wrong, did you approach him? Did
No,
you
no,
ask him? No. Okay.
no, no, no. That's I mean, sometimes there's a question like, hey, we did this. I would like to know the thinking behind it, knowing that there's a very, very good reason why something happened a certain way. But even then, I'll rarely ask that. I'll just, pass it off as I didn't account for something, or, like, just there's a lot of decisions to be made during a game. And so chances are things are going to not always play out like you think they are.
On the rare occasions when I've questioned him, it's always, and I know this going in, like I'm not trying to, but it's always because I don't have all of the information.
Sure.
And when I do ask him, he's always cool. I mean, he's always cool about it with me, because he knows that, like, because he knows that I don't have all the information. But in the way that I just, in a curiosity about how a game works, I'll ask on occasion. You're not afraid to ask him those questions, right? You're just
No, no, no. I mean, and like I said, I rarely like disagree with something. And if it's always a pitching situation too, right? Like most of the time, like 90% of the decisions he's making is, when am I going to use certain pitchers, and is it going to be a double switch, or, that kind of thing, or, who do I call upon in the bullpen for this situation? And there's so much information that he's going to know that I don't know. Right. Like, and a lot of it, I guess you've seen this week, is, how overworked are those guys out there? Like, those guys are really tired. You can't run them out there every day if you want them to make it all the way through September.
Yeah, gotcha. And then just finally, some people describe him as a player's manager, and I've always been curious, because he was a pitcher. Do you relate to him as a player, or does it still feel like he's sort of, kind of like on the other side as a pitcher?
I think he's still a player's manager in the sense that he really wants to be in touch with what's going on with his players, whether they're position players or pitchers, and is super approachable and really likes to communicate so that we're not on different pages. So he does a really good job of that. At the same time, I feel like his experience playing is a really big asset for our pitching staff and our bullpen. But at the same time, those are different experiences than me and the rest of the position players have. But at this same time, I feel like Redmond being his bench coach kind of helps him round out that experience. So I think between the two of them, they have a really good idea of what's going on throughout the entire roster.
Gotcha. Thanks, Charlie.
Danielle.
Hi, Charlie. You know Coors Field probably as well as anyone, and you've been in a derby before. Have you talked strategy with Trevor Story yet? How would you approach the derby?
Yeah, we spoke a little bit. Not that I'm gonna like give him anything, it's not like anything I tell him is gonna make him good or bad at the derby. My experiences coming out of the derby were you're going to be way more nervous than you think, just because you're not trained to do home run derby. You're trained to play the game, and home run derby is very different, very, very different. So it'll make you a little bit nervous. And then the other thing for me was just like I knew that I was going to have to struggle to like not be super nervous and swing like way harder than I should be trying to swing. One of the things that I tried to do was feel like I was swinging at like 85 or 90%, knowing that the atmosphere of the event is going to really elevate that. And that was a good spot to be for me. So I mentioned that to him, but Trevor's going to be fine. He's got a lot of ability. He handles situations really, really well, and he's got tons of power. He's going to be fine.
Have you talked like actual strategy for like the rounds and where to hit it and all that stuff at all with them?
Yeah, I mean, I talked a little bit about what I did in terms of like, for me personally, I wanted to like make sure that I was hitting the ball in the air. And so what I didn't want to do is come out and pull the first couple balls right down the line, because then, that makes you subjective to, or it makes it susceptible to hooking the ball and topspin the ball, and that's not what you want. You want backspin, you want fly balls that carry. So, I told him that I came out and tried to hit fly balls to center field early until you kind of find your swing. And then you can like work towards pulling them a little bit. But he's going to be fine with that. And he did ask me about like, when do you think we should use a timeout? And, I told him like, whenever you get tired, like it's kind of like, you just got to feel it out yourself. There's not much I can do to help.
Thank you.
Patrick.
Hi, Charlie. I got a couple for you. Doing a story about the bright young stars that will be coming to Denver. And of course, Ohtani, although he's not super young, but Tatis Jr., Acuna Jr., Vlad Guerrero Jr., those guys. And Tatis in particular, they play with a lot of flash. I mean, Tatis, epic bat flips, dances around third base when he hits a home run, etc. You're not a generation removed from him, but you're an older player. What do you think about the flash and the raw fun and emotion that some of the young players are exhibiting? What's your take on all of that?
I think it's really good for players to be able to express themselves. I think it's exciting. It's good for fans. It's good for the game. However, like, I approach things differently and have a different background than they do. And that's why we're going to express ourselves differently. I do think it's important to maintain a level of respect for the game and your opponents. And I'm not saying they're not doing that. I'm just saying like that for me is really high on the list. But I think excitement and flair and emotion, while that's not really me personally, I do think it's good for the game. It makes for great highlights. It makes for good commercials. It brings young fans to the game. I think there's a lot of good things about it.
And just as long as you respect your opponent and the guys on the field, as long as you're not showing guys up and in their face is kind of what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, that's different in different cultures, right? Like what I consider being respectful of the opponent is probably going to be different than what someone else thinks, in their culture, whether it be Japan or Korea or Latin America, Venezuela. Like it could be, it's kind of different. So, and for that reason, like you're going to have some, like sometimes it creates friction, which once again, is like pretty exciting and maybe good for the game.
Okay. Second part of my question for you, I'm sure you're tired of answering these. The road record we all know is not good, and the offense is not good on the road for you guys. Do you think it's in your guys' heads? Do you think guys are carrying that into the games?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. And why do you say no so quickly?
Because it's not in my head.
But not you particularly, but how about some of your teammates?
No, it affects me also, and I'm not in my head about it, but it's still happening when I leave. And it's because we're no longer at altitude. The ball does things differently once it leaves the pitcher's hand before it gets to the plate. And at a big league level, playing against the best in the world, to have to make those adjustments in competition from one day to the next, while almost nobody else in the game has to do that, it's going to have an effect.
Makes complete sense. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Evan,
Hey, Charlie, a couple of questions for you. You talk about the best in the game and hitting, and I want to ask you a hitting question to start. One thing that Raimel Tapia has gotten very good at is taking the ball the opposite way. What does it take for a left-handed batter like Tap, to actually push the ball into the opposite side of the field, especially down third baseline, like he's shown a propensity to do this year?
That's a really tough way to hit. There's some things that he can do, and letting the ball get so deep that it's just really dangerous as a hitter. Like it's a really good way, if you're not good at it and you're not comfortable trying to do that, it's a really good way to have a meltdown as a hitter and not, and not be good at all. And it's tough to do what he's doing. And physically he's pretty special that he can let the ball get deep and then still like foul off a really high fastball that has a good spin rate. Like those are almost like mutually exclusive. You can't do one and you can't let it get deep and hit high spin rate at the same time, but he somehow figures out how to do both. So it's not for everybody, but he's doing a really good job at it.
Do you all talk hitting often? I mean, is that a conversation?
We have pretty different hitting styles,
Yeah.
But sometimes we will have conversations about pitchers themselves, right? Like what I'm trying to do in the box is not exactly what he's trying to do, but we're still see the same things from a pitcher. And that's kind of what we align on when we talk about.
And then one more complete off topic. If you had a day to show someone around Denver during the All-Star game, what are some must-dos in your mind?
Good question. It's almost like you think I have tons of free time and just do things. I personally really like the mountains. So I think like a really fun thing to do might be like visit Golden, which is right there at the mountains. Maybe hike along the river there. And then in town, 16th Street Mall is pretty cool. The Cherry Creek trail that leads to Confluence Park is pretty awesome. I would definitely hit up a rooftop bar restaurant, get some pizza or something downtown in Lodo, near the stadium. Maybe check out McGregor Square, which is brand new.
Yep.
And then what else? I've heard the zoo is great. Okay. And I've been to the aquarium, and that was also kind of nice.
Well, we'll keep them off your favorite trout spots. So I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Mark Stout.
Hey, Chuck, how are you? What were your initial thoughts when you heard that Marquez was an all-star?
Oh, I'm so happy for him. He's pitched really well, and he's pitched super well late too, right? And you just don't know if like the late push is going to be enough to like to influence the ballots. But he's done such a good job, and he's been a good pitcher for us for a while. You know, you're just really happy for the person and happy for the player to see him rewarded that way.
Should that be a bigger deal because he's a pitcher in Colorado?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the statistics, it's really hard to make it as a pitcher because it's an offensive park, right? It's tough to pitch for Colorado and deal with that whole home road thing like we talked about. So I think it, you know, when you make it as a pitcher from Colorado, you're definitely doing something good.
Do opponents ask you about him, or do they basically tell you what he's like when they face him? What's more accurate?
You know, I haven't talked to a ton of hitters about him. I've just seen it, you know, like it's just so easy and effortless for him. And then it explodes out of his hand. And then like his slider looks like guys just don't see it, right? It's just, you know, they're ready for 97. And then all of a sudden it just goes straight down, you know. I mean, it's a true strikeout pitcher, right? Like a guy you go up there and you have to worry about striking out like right from the get-go. I mean, he's just got such great stuff, and he's doing a good job.
Last thing, do you have any kind of fly fishing exhibition set up during All-Star Week where, you know, you could give out tips at play ball or something? No?
No, I'm actually I will be fishing myself. So I'm gonna capitalize on a couple of days off right there.
You're going to fish alone, right? Pretty much, yeah.